We getting knots like stockbrokers who won't Marriott's. Blast shots for all my niggas who splash cops. The rich Coleon campus here, 1001 corner, son. Fake a jack, you be a goner. Yo, control this rap like Napoleon, half Mongolian. Hold it, you owe me in. Rock 'em like linoleum, yeah. Lex, diamond, shining like you rhyming 929. Titanium glass, time to play that ass. Whirlwinds of French, come moving intense. Time to pull again, release the shell well. Make them yell again, so sleep. But I'ma be maxing the sweets, counting your paper and counting your sheets, hitting your chicken jeeps. Miraculously attacking faculty who wanna tackle me. Your Jack Mac kidnapping for free. What? You got heat, you better pop those. We moving like Gestapos through underground potholes to rock those. Much land discoveries, chrome rims, sipping bubbly. Who living lovely? Half a brick to cover me, so dissing me. Come on now, listen G. Use a dime, I'm a key, thun, straight out of Sicily. Now back to the stash crib. Joey crack bagging up cracks. One love, getting cheap backs. We getting knots like stockbrokers who won't Marriott's. Blast shots for all my niggas who splash dots. The rich Coleon campus here. 1001 corner thun, fake a jack.
One fight, copy the infamous who leaves the witnesses. Cracks the wickedest. Run up in your crib, blast your kids. Ain't no myth in this. Shit's official. I pistol whip you with my pistol blessing. Cause my obsession with sending rappers to heaven gets me in the rushing. You need protection from the smooth assassin who really moves with action, blasting motherfuckers execution fashion. Now who's the fat one that you love to hate? Catch you at your mother's weight, smack you then I whack you with my sub-create. It doesn't take much to make me restless. Look at my face and deaf and lose depression and truck up my face's lessons. To war test this severely, I make one call, I have the hobo coming on the ferry. I'm very dangerous and well connected. I'm buffing out with method and trying to decide who's got the feelings hustling. So respected and admired, the boss retired, you lost. Wu-Tang and Terror Squad, vaya con Dios.
Like stockbrokers who won't Marriott's. Blast shots for all my niggas who splash got. Rich Coleon campus here. 1001 corner thumb, fake a jack, leave me the border.
You guys despise guys like us, disgust like Spartacus. You Gus, they play the bus. You lust for a part of us, you lust but can't touch. Plus we far from any type of fellas you can trust. Put the pressure on them like a bench press to your chest. Sound like sweat on my back when they're having sex. Tight ass flex, pretty Pocahontas, pussy sweet like Mono Tech. Sis got curves like a GS 300X. My body's 95% alcohol, 5% cancer. Source of diamonds, Getty Lucci, blaze it up like Bonanza. Catch me in the cut, easy G's is burning my gut as I remember my menage a trois with Monty by sluts. I question mark your heart, punctuate your fate. All your version gets done as well as you pronunciate. In the rap, we're going to break you off the aisle. Take CO's hostage, A-Rap style, no surrender.
Get knots like stockbrokers who won't Marriott's. Blast shots for all my niggas who splash got. Rich Coleon campus here. 1001 corner third, fake a jack, leave me the corner.
Yeah, I'm all about business and enterprise and advising financial advisors on franchising and widen their horizons. Revising ideas with masterminders, moving on the stash with diamonds. First we get the cash, then we laugh like miners. Don't get me wrong, I'm a funny bastard, but when it comes to money done, I'm not the one to laugh with them after. For what cash to bring me brothers, me and my demon lovers blasting, laughing hyenas back to ringling brothers. Believe the mothers, you the best jester. Still, I'm investing mills on a hunch over lunch, puffing on the Chesterfield. Rewind test the real scandalous. I'm at the Sands in Los Angeles, planning hits with anonymous philanthropists. Spanish kids, post the guards like evangelists, chopping niggas up and making sandwiches.
Like stockbrokers who won't Marriott's. Blast shots for all my niggas who splash out. Rich Coleon campus here. 1001 corner third, fake a jack, leave me the corner.
Executionist, y'all know the name. Stabbing the track with both hands. Executionist, y'all know the name. Executionist, y'all know the name. Stabbing the track with both hands. Executionist, y'all know the name. You out there? This is Mass
masterful, classical, material wax, imperial tactics. Black shit, I master traps that collapse backwards. All area access passes without practice. Hit them, then I'ma shit on them and spit on them and send faxes. Maximum amount, not the minimal. The orator rock, chop like Florida Seminole. Subliminal rap switch, make criminals act bitch. Instrumental in creating the most pinnacle rap shit. Got Tony Braxton looking women collapsing. My beats get feet to stepping like fast acting and acting. Dominant X-Men conference like Pac-10. Backslap, whack rap actors to get a reaction. My venom of rips, then is up, then I'm a wreck shit. Then I'm a flip, administer hits on this next shit. DJs collect hits from them to hit the exit at they shows. The front row usually can get hectic. The X shit.
Yup, y'all know the name. Execution is stabbing the track with both hands together. The four, you out there? Execution is, y'all know the name. Stabbing the track with both hands together. The four, forever gon' win.
Yeah. Check it. You wanna get to my level, but you don't hustle enough. Any attempts on touching my stuff and I'm fucking you up. I'm sick of weak shit winning, nigga. Your rhymes ain't rocking. The good life is a bitch. Seem like everybody cock blocking. The shot clock is running out, letting out the police. I crack the teeth of any nigga with beef. Masterpiece, execution is naturally. Any problems come to Los Angeles and ask for me.
Yo, catastrophe, none can match me. Naturally nasty, manually smash your faculty. Verbal assault and battery. Sporadically blast on the capacity crowd and cause casualties. Street savvy, niggas blast me out the navvy. Groupie chick wish she can have me. XC in back of me, hit like a daiquiri. Accurately, you don't grab me, your skills still latchkey.
Y'all know the name. Execution is stabbing the track with both hands together. The four, you out there? Execution is stabbing the track. The track.
Yo, I got my man Rock Raider on the Rob Swift, where you at, son? What? Sinister, make him. Now we ready to go. Last but not least, Solar Eclipse. What you don't know? I got a question. Who could see it? I don't know. But whenever I play, you know the skills gon' flow. Shit, we mastered defeat. You can't bring us. What? Y'all couldn't grab if y'all was doing that shit with 8 fingers. Come on, Black. We in the Hall of Fame. Got your picture in our crib on the wall of shame. I expect them C's to wanna murder me. Cause when we open up and start cutting, you wish you was in surgery. You see the X? Hardly. Here's some orphans, nigga. Take your ass back to doing parties. You better off with somebody shooting you. And change your name to DJ I Got Beat by the Executioner.
Yup.
Hey yo, Butane, Jermaine, Hussein's my new name. Head Trauma Records, produce the blue flame. Let's play my ink pen spray, what Sean Penn say. After the picture is drawn, I yawn, then lay. Enter the quiet zones, harps and xylophones provide the tone. Pass me the microphone, flow natural. Walk over to control panel, highlight the mode of attack, select battle. The record's deviated, everything's recreated. Be created, step inside my MC simulator. Slowly pull the wool from over your eyes as shoots mobilize to recover stolen rhymes. You push, I pull, you drive, I ride. You buy what I supply, shut the fuck up and drive. Dragonfly aerial view, wind speed less than 2. Lieutenant Manchu, the best of my crew. Mandarian 2, arguing with Aryan Zeus. But the truth is he mad cause I married a goop. And she know when I lock and load, my cock rolls, I burn the block down. Get the cops on the phone. Don't look for contact find you. We walk up behind you while you listen to iTunes. Majestic Mike Master with a jaw antimatter, cloak and dagger. Did a Van Goghs with 2 stolen Van Goghs. Dagger and cloak. The Majestic Mike Master with a jaw antimatter, cloak and dagger. Did a Van Goghs with 2 stolen Van Goghs. Dagger and cloak.
Hey yo, I'm lyrically lethal. My seafood taught me how to spit C4. Initiate the death blow. The Dunmock, Thai warrior, unbuck. Brooklyn, Vietnam, hold me down on the blocks. The war in this lock, crooked ass cops. Psych you up with psychops. Third eye bigger than Cyclops. Return to Planet Rock, 0700 hours on the dot. We stop the plot to ban hip hop. Martial law got every city block on lock. Snipers on top of the buildings, scoping out the ghetto children's 5-5%ers in the cypher building. 85 is still long for the return of the stigmata.
The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, you hear it, you feel it. Possessing my lyrics, ancient spirits from the pyramids. We speak graffiti, hieroglyphics, terrific. Audiographic, cybernetic pictures, direct from the flame scriptures. Rip your flesh with the bones. Body bagger on the microphone. Gamma, Omega, Delta, drop zone. Don't test it until we bless it with the messianic message. The majestic mic masters, Sith Lord assassins, trained in the black arts. I spit a poison dart in your heart. Hannibal lecture, tear your body apart. Stand parallel, I parasail down the carousel. Rhythmatic, jujitsu, I do this well. Front sword, handstand, I landed on the back of the van. I made the driver crash into a trash can. Before we exchange blows, cloak beaming with the scope. Spit his knot with the Hindu red dot, cleaning the soap. The jar of antimatter was stuck in his coat. I bagged the 2 Van Goghs, then repelled up a light pole. Black Cobra Commander, Rambo Commando Platoon. Walk up on the Jacob's ladder, you doomed. Blood spill, you get served from meal on Hamburger Hill. My squad been ready to die, but now they ready to kill. My soldiers are ill, swallow 6 cyanide pill. March from Brooklyn on the Brownsville to buck you with the hot steel. What's the deal? C&D, we both worth a meal. Penetrate your force field, Wesley snipe you with the raw skill. I fucking wipe you off this planet for real. C&D, sword and shield, hip-hop prophecy fulfilled.
Majestic mic master with a jar antimatter. Cloak and dagger. Did a Van Goghs with 2 stolen Van Goghs. Dagger and cloak. The majestic mic master with a jar antimatter. Cloak and dagger. Did a Van Goghs with 2 stolen Van Goghs. Dagger and cloak. They know, yo, the gifted God, sick with the bars. My spit's like the world's biggest liquid bomb. Welcome to the nation of Islam.com. Stop storms from spinning with fists and arms. A beast on the mic, nowadays I chill. Anywhere rap exists, they praise my skill. All by myself, I buckled the whole asteroid belt. I laugh when they ask for my help. Capture more souls than Hell's Gate Border Patrol. Exported the flow, imported some hoes. Better respect the verbos fed. Yermo's best, Germanicus left and came back with Merlot breath. The Robo-Mech, Turbo Tech with a werewolf chest. Servos turn both my wrists. Mike Masters with a recipe for the antimatter. You don't wanna fuck around with cloak or dagger.
Yeah, welcome to The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. And yeah, we got some pretty interesting continuation of some of my initial thoughts that I was circulating about Neoplatonism and the development of the universal mind, the detachment from nature, okay, the formulation of the archetypal man, the apotheosis of the state, okay, and that really comes from this divide between faith and reason, okay, the loss of the theopolitical state, the rise of secular humanism, okay, and a bunch of those ideas that basically culminated in the 11th century, right? And the main culprits were Aristotelianism, right? Neoplatonism, right? And the philosophy of Maimonides and Aquinas, right? So how did that come about, right? How did, the idea of theos, switch right into this notion, okay, of mechanos, or the mechanistic worldview, right? Comparing nature to man's creations, right? And all these subsequent ideals, right? So if we could formulate 3 movements that occurred, right? One would be the natural organization of man, right? And that's based on, it is exactly how it sounds, right? Nature, right? The environment, right? Okay, then there is the ethnos, right? Or the cultural formulation of man, right? And the symbolic forms, right? And there we look at the human element of civilization, right? Apart from nature, right? And then we have the technological civilization, right? Which tends towards an international movement, right? And a world global system, right? And there's many reasons why it tends towards that, right? You know, but some of the main reasons is because of multiculturalism, right? AKA universalism, right? And also, you know, well, there's many different ideas that make it come about, right? But mainly, right? If we could look at these three modes, right? The cultural, having different designs, right? Okay, or accomplishing way more than the natural and the technological being a far greater form of complexity, right? And we're dealing with orders of complexity that are way off the scale. I mean, right? When you're looking at human society, right, you're looking at orders of complexity that are, you know, exponentially greater than natural forms of organization, right? And you're looking at diversity, like the diversity between a human and another human, okay, is infinitely more complex than between like two animals of the same species. Right? There's more difference between a man and another man than there is between a man and an animal. And you could pick any man and any animal for that second example. Yeah, that's how crazy it is. The complexity of human society. Right? But the notion of you know, universalism, multiculturalism, you know, and you know, total separation of nature, right? And the loss of cultural forms, right? What does technology accomplish? Well, it assimilates cultural forms, right? And yeah, the way they do it is you know, to actually you know, create communication between all parts of the world. Right, and that rise of international trade and the rise of multiculturalism combined, right? And of course, it's technology that accomplishes both these things, right? But first, you have to have the rise of the state, right? You have to have a human being, right, that's formulated through his political identity, right? And we said we move from religion to politics, right? Art to science. Right? Then from nature to time, from mind to language. Right? And of course, these latter forms have usurped these previous formulations. Right? Okay. Time has usurped nature. Right? Language has usurped mind. Right? Mimetic complexity is ontological doom. Doomage. Yeah. I got 9 people in here by sounding little smarty pants. Hey, who rated us earlier?
I think it was Gen X Jeff, but
Gen
there
X,
wasn't
yeah.
too many people that came over.
Nice. Blessings. I appreciate you. Gen X Jeff. It's been a minute, bud. Really appreciate your time. Had lots of conversations with that guy about tons of subjects: religion, politics, philosophy. Right? Those are my main areas of study, folks. Right? And I think they all relate to the world technological system. Right? And they basically comprise, right? All sorts of mental, psychological, and spiritual conditioning, right? For the mass of mankind, right? And most people don't know how these world systems were formulated, right? But it has a lot to do with if we were to trace the history. Okay, well, we have the great empires of the world, right? And you have the city state. Okay, in Athens, okay, you have the great civilizations of the world. Okay, and what develops in those places, okay, through multiculturalism and the use of symbolic forms, which is a technique, right? Both with symbolic or cultural forms, right? Agriculture and simple tools, right? You could totally formulate an organization for man where he's conditioned by human society and not by nature. Right? That's all you need to get rid of natural forms of organization. Right now, what do you need for technological forms of organization? Right? Well, you need this process to, increase in scope, right? You need international trade. You need international transportation, right? That can assimilate cultural forms. Okay, so the rise of the state, the rise of secular humanism, the separation of the church and state, and the effect of both Aristotelianism and Neoplatonism on both the Jews and the Christians is a huge element of how religion turned to science. Religion just didn't just turn into science overnight. Okay, where we moved from the theological worldview to the scientific worldview. Right? You had to create a mechanistic universe. You had to create the notion of universal man. Right? You had to create the notion of desacralization of nature. You had to create the notion of compartmentalization of knowledge. Right? And this is how we've been tracing, right? The development. Okay, so I've spoken for about 10 minutes here, and I'm going to move into looking at the historical development, right? And I'm going to give you guys a rundown of history, and then I'm going to narrow in on Maimonides and St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay, and then I'm going to move into looking at how their ideas developed over time and how the Kabbalah and all these ideas, and also the Protestant Reformation, right, in the 15th century. And traces development, right? And of course, the Jews and the Christians, right? I mean, the Jews supported the Protestant Reformation in Europe, right? Okay, because they sought religious freedoms. Okay, so this is the history. It's well-known history. Okay, and both Maimonides and St. Thomas Aquinas, they made compromises with Aristotelianism, which led them to develop politics and the worldly philosophy of reason over faith. Okay, so where we had a lapse in the link between knowledge and values, right, it was preceded by a separation of faith and reason. Okay, the authority of Scripture and the authority reached by human reason. They were in a brutal conflict with each other, right? So the notion of, first of all, God had to be removed from nature. Right? This had to happen so that they could create the world ex nihilo, right? As religion commanded, but they had to do so within the purview of Aristotelian philosophy. Right? So they created the notion of universals and particulars. Right? They separated nature from God. Okay, there's a compromise that, in one sense, seems natural. In another sense, seems promulgated by great historical minds. Whether you think it's caused by humans or whether you think it's just the development of ideas through history, their so-called evolution, as you would say. Well, the second view gives way to a technical or mechanistic worldview. Right? You either believe in history or you believe in futurism. Or aka evolution, right? And of course, these two views are completely at odds with each other. Okay, are God and nature and time and creativity and human creativity, right? How do those all relate to each other, right? Well, that's what the Aristotelian philosophers of the 12th and 13th centuries, right? They were focused on that, right? And there's a battle between scriptural authority and those truths that were arrived at through reason. So they had to separate the divine from human reason. And then when they got rid of the divine, it's human reason that became divine in and of itself. Yeah, this is true. Religious leaders of all stripes fought against technology, the tools of the devil. This is a fact. And now we have the rise of the technological worldview, right? The technological world system. Okay, and the thing that created it, liberalism, it's on its deathbed. And what about the religions of the world? They're still here. They didn't go anywhere. So this is an extremely strange situation that we're in, folks. Okay. No historian or futurist could have ever predicted it, as it is. Lizard Tree, blessings. Calyx, blessings. Max Vision, I appreciate you. R Pole, thank you for being here. Vinny Pots and Pans, thank you for watching, sir. Yeah, one's true nature, that's right.
Hit a little edit there.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Yeah. Great vision. Hello, great friend. Blessings. Nick Bolt, I appreciate you. Is alchemy older than religion? I mean, alchemy is nothing more than science. Okay, it's just science before they compartmentalize knowledge, right? Right, so, I mean, it's just old science is what I call it, right? And of course, the Aristotelians had a huge link to that, right? Yeah, blessings origin. Were they right? Were they right? How much technology is necessary to live a good life? Is your goal righteousness or power? Do you need power to do the right thing? They're all good questions. They're all good questions. All great questions, my friends. Of course, conformity in our age is nothing more than conformity to the technological system, and technology is the objective factor of power in our age. And the state wields huge instruments of power. Okay, but it had to be made a central place in the development of humanity first. There was key thinkers like Hegel and Marx who put it at the central place. Kant, Hegel, and Marx. They're a problem. Okay, how do we get to their ideas? Right. Well, I gave a huge about scholasticism. Okay, and the development from Boethius. Okay, we had huge discussions about it on Saturday. So I refer you to that presentation on Saturday. Okay, and we're going to be continuing looking at some of the development, right? So now, obviously, Plato, okay, he gave the state a central place, or politics a central place. Okay, instead of family or natural forms of organization, right? So this was the beginning of him creating philosophical ideals, right, as a technique to assimilate cultural forms. Okay, and of course he drew this idea from all sorts of, his travels and looking at different sorts of states and all that type of stuff. He wanted to come up with the best sort of state. Right? So anytime somebody tries to come up with the best way to do something, right, that's basically a technique, right? You're trying to develop a technique. Okay, so the techniques of statecraft, right, were the people who idealized the best kind of state. They had to universalize the concept of statecraft, right, into a political ideal. Right? Well, it's because Plato thought of the notion of universal forms, right? Okay, and that's why Aristotle created his whole idea about the state being the tempering human potential. Right? Because he was more concerned with the worldly affairs, right? Remember Plato pointing to the one above, right? While Aristotle pointing to the multiplicity below. Okay. And the battle between these two systems created Neoplatonism as a system, right? Okay, as a cosmological, metaphysical system, right? Philosophical system, right? So Plotinus, Philo of Alexandria, and then Plotinus, right? Philo lived around the time of Jesus, right? Ammonius Saccas taught both Origen and Plotinus. And of course, the history of the Alexandrian Jews, right? This is where they got started with the idea of Roman Jerusalem, right? That these are the two great pillars of Western civilization, right? Well, what was Origen? Origen was a Christian Neoplatonist, right? Now seen by the Orthodox to be a heretical teacher. Not the Origen, but our not our friend Origen, but but Origen. Origen. Exactly. Plotinus, Proclus. Yep. Yeah, Origen, that's right. And of course, these systems were developed by Boethius. Okay. Isidore Cassidorius, right? And others. Okay, who developed systems of the trivium and the quadrivium. Okay, and in the 9th century, you have Avicenna, right? And Avicenna and Averroes, they really shake up the world, right? They're rejected in the Islamic world, right? But they're adopted by Aquinas and Maimonides, right? So the battle between faith and reason begins. Right, so let's take a look at some of the views of Maimonides. Okay, he says the son of a judge, Maimonides Moses ben Maimon, was born in Cordoba, Spain, but left when young owing to the persecution of the Jews. The Jews were expelled from Spain during the Muslim rule by the Almohad Caliphate. And Averroes lost favor with the court as well. I believe he was a physician of the Sultan. These guys were extremely high up. Okay, in 1160, he went to Fez, the sacred city of Morocco. Why does it say sacred here? I never heard Morocco was sacred, but yeah. And then to Cairo, where he became the court physician and leader of the Jewish community. He later also became physician to Saladin's family. Okay, much of Maimonides' thinking, okay, this metaphysics and religious philosophy, it says here, much of Maimonides' thinking is concerned with a conflict between religious teaching and what can be known by the intellect. Okay, so there's a battle between scripture and reason. Okay, and they wanted to know if you could use reason to interpret scripture. And of course, what did Martin Luther come down to saying? Can anybody take a wild guess? Said, nope. You can't use reason to interpret scripture. So he totally separated reason and scripture. This totally matters, right? Because when Kant separates morality from his empirical knowledge and places it in a different category, he's totally doing the work of Martin Luther, right? He's separating reason from scriptural authority. But of course, this work was already being done by Jewish and Christian philosophers. And they were creating a synthesis, right? The Protestants and the Jews, Okay, that was going to culminate in something called Judeo-Christian. And it's taken the world by storm, folks. Look at Jordan Peterson. He says Judeo-Christian. Look at Ben Shapiro. He says Judeo-Christian. Okay, and look at Sam Harris. No, I'm sorry, Michael Shermer. He says Islam is the only culture in the world to not have a reformation. Well, he means by that Jews and Christians had a reformation. What does that mean? Well, it means that they separated reason from scriptural authority. That's all that it means, folks. It's not that fucking complicated. Much of Maimonides' thinking is concerned with a conflict between religious teaching and what can be known by the intellect in general. He says that when what we learn through our reason seems to be inconsistent with Scripture, the latter should be interpreted allegorically.
Ooh.
Fun times. However, while his aim was to harmonize reason with faith, he recognized that reason may not always be adequate and may have to give way. Thus, while religion tells us the temporal world was created by God's will in time out of nothing or ex nihilo, when we see that the causes of things are grounded in nature, right? Causality in nature, right? That's how they developed empiricism, right? You have A, the laws of nature, B, the uniformity of nature, and C, our ability to realize the causes of things in nature so that we realize how they change. So he says we can well conclude that the world must always have the same structure and is thus eternal and necessary. The creation, therefore, cannot be demonstrated and seems miraculous. Nevertheless, it may be that empirical data from which the conclusion is drawn are insufficient for what reason gives us must be rejected. God for Maimonides is regarded as immaterial. Immaterial, that's separate from nature, right? With a capital N, right? Pure intellectual act, at once efficient, formal, and final cause. The prime mover, those are all Aristotelian ideas of causality, right? So you can see how he's stuck. Okay, he says the only necessary being, right? So he's there taking the ideas from Avicenna, okay, and from his Aristotelian cosmology, right? And he is one, transcendent and omnipotent, having the absolute power to suspend the laws of nature. However, strictly speaking, qualities can be attributed to the being of God only negatively. So see how reason is separate from our understanding of God. We can say only what he is not, and any terms applied to him, even existence itself, will have an equivocal sense. But Maimonides allows that we can describe him positively by references to his effects. So there's the idea of reasoning from nature to God, right? Another Aristotelian idea, right? You can't argue from the transcendental, from fundamental principles, to particular things, right? You have to argue from particular effects to universal principles. Right? Thus we may describe him as merciful or vengeful, for this is how we interpret his activity and his control of natural events. Indeed, it is from recognition of change and contingency. This is a key word, contingency. All of nature is contingent on God's will, right? But that means that nature is subject to change, right? And God is immaterial, right? This is the only way he can change things in nature. And of course, they don't believe that God directly affects things. Okay, I'm pretty sure he came up with the compromise that God only influences universals and not particulars. Right? So yeah. Thus we may describe him as merciful or vengeful, for this is how we interpret his activity, his control of natural events. Indeed, it is from recognition of changes and contingency in the natural created world that we can prove God's existence. God produces both matter and form freely from his intellect. For him to know is, in effect, to create. Being, that is existence, says Maimonides, is an accident.
Existence is an accident? Did I hear that right?
Oh yeah, but that's accident as opposed to substance. Right? Substantial and accidental, right? Right, that means caused by something else, right?
Okay.
In Aristotelian terminology, right? So yeah, so it's an accident of essences, in that essences may or may not be actualized to form substances. Between God and the corporeal world is a hierarchy. Okay, and this is huge. This hierarchy of being, right, that they use to create notions of evolution and so on and so forth, as I described to our friends Brown's Boy and other people. Right, this hierarchy of being. Right, and the way that spirit goes up the chain of being, right? Okay, this hugely influenced the Kabbalah, right? And it's also related to Neoplatonism, right? Because the spirit goes up the chain of being in Neoplatonism as well. Right? Immaterial intelligences or spirits. Maimonides confines hylomorphism to corporeal beings, but insofar as he knows these intelligible principles, he is in a sense identical with them. The 10th and last intelligence is called the active intelligence, or the active intellect, and through which God informs and thereby actualizes essences. Maimonides distinguishes between natural and moral evil. Natural evil is real from the point of view of individual men, but it should be seen as a consequence of the cosmic order. Moral evil, on the other hand, is attributed to man's free will. It says Maimonides sees no incompatibility between this and God's providence. Knowledge and psychology. Maimonides distinguishes between the soul's passive and external or active intellect. Okay, so there's two types of intellect or reason, right? To acquire knowledge, our passive intellects on receiving sensory data must be endowed with forms by the active intellect. Okay, so this seems exactly like what Kant says. Okay, that there's an intuitive sort of intellect, but there's also one that behaves by gathering sense data and looking at empirical data. Right, so and conclusions reached by reason through deductive inference will be true if experiences which constitute the starting point are reliable. He seems to regard man's intellect as similar to a kind of in kind to gods. So man's intellect cannot grasp God, but it's the same intellect as God's intellect? Okay.
It's rather strange.
This is what happens when you take everything from everybody else. You lose the plot. Just saying.
Right.
This is what happens when Edom, jacks everything from. Well, I don't want to go on that diatribe, but blessings from the
Yeah.
Israelites, we'll say.
In air quotes.
In air. In some ways, yes, but in some ways, actually, that is actually kind of accurate. It's just you have to redefine Israel. You have to redefine, like, all this shit has to be redefined. But I mean, really, it is true. Second Temple Judaism is 1000% Greek. Like, it really is.
Oh
there
yeah,
are even
huge
rabbis.
influences.
There are even rabbis who admit this. And the Greeks, as I was saying on my stream, were very much influenced by the Persians, and Iranian, philosophy. The pre-Socratics, were almost entirely Iranian. So, that's a whole nother ball of wax. So, yeah, but Maimonides had some interesting things to say. He did when he wasn't, damning the goy.
Yeah, he's
But
a
yeah.
huge influence on the Lurianic Kabbalah. Like,
Yes,
massive
yeah.
influence.
Yeah, well, Isaac Luria had some interesting things to say too when he wasn't
Oh,
saying
yeah.
that, all, the best of Gentiles deserve death. Yeah. But yeah, blessings. So what I'm basically saying is, even devilish minds have things to say. Like I'm serious. I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not. I'm not being a smartass. Like he really did have some really interesting things to say.
Oh
you
yeah.
know. So, just like, you take what you can and leave the rest out. Like another one was Spinoza. I like Spinoza a lot more than some of the more like well known. But Baruch
Spinoza was a
Yeah.
huge problem.
Mhm.
Was a problem for the system.
Right, right, and that's why I say he was like one of the good ones, because he actually really was on some shit, and he kind of turned everything upside down, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, he declared that nature is mind and nature is God.
Yes.
So that
Right, right,
flipped things on its
exactly.
it flipped Cartesian dualism on its head. It flipped the idea of the mechanistic universe.
Right.
He espoused a sort of pantheism.
Yeah,
But,
very pagan in a way, in that sense, to say that nature is the mind of God. 'Cause
He
that's
totally
what pagans
alienated,
essentially have been saying from
yeah.
day one.
Yeah, he
You know,
totally
that-
alienated the Jews and the Protestants. 1,000,000%. So much so that they exiled him.
Yes.
Yikes. And he died alone.
Yes.
It is what it is.
Yeah, man. And so, I don't care where someone comes from. There's a lot of like I was talking about the house of knowledge and the house of wisdom. Like even though that ended up being something used for infiltration, like there were a lot of Islamic scholars and like initiation shit. They were absolutely brilliant. That even influenced the Templars. And not all the Templars were bad either. So there's always good and bad in everything. And I think it's really important to like keep that in mind when studying this stuff. Like whatever it is, like you could take information from anywhere. Information is neutral. Technology is neutral. Technique is neutral. It's what it's used for.
Yeah, I would say they used to be the same thing. I mean, these are modern distinctions, right? Alchemy and religion were the same thing back in the
Absolutely.
day. Now they're basically this is what I mean by compartmentalization of knowledge. They created subjects, right? And they said this subject area doesn't have to do with this subject area. If we specialize it, we can understand it better. If we isolate it, we can understand it better. This is thanks to techniques of observation, right? And also the refinement of empirical methods. Right. Well, you couldn't have the refinement of empirical methods. Yeah. Yeah, you couldn't have the refinement of empirical methods unless you said, well, reason is separate from nature, right? Like as I'm trying to describe, right? So it's pretty interesting how they got going with that. But yeah, in the beginning, there was no separation of subjects. Like anthropologists created the word religion. Man, like if you go to like people in the forest and you go, hey, you guys follow a religion? They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right. It was a lifestyle. It was
Right.
like legitimately how they lived. Like for them to see any different was like, to them it was science. And this is kind of like gets into like Plato and the Noble Lie and what that really was.
Yeah, because alchemy was just science. So science and religion and politics, all of those used to be the same damn
and
subject.
they were taught as the same too.
Yeah.
And that's why you look at like these Greek philosophers and even like in like the Renaissance period and shit. And these guys have like 8 different what we today would call, like well basically they were multidisciplinary. And they were masters of like 8 different disciplines, and that was like normal. And that's because they taught all of this as not as something separate, but as a holistic, science. And that's been lost, and it's been by design to divide this all up so that you don't see how it connects. And people have to spend like all these years studying one specialty to get some kind of mastery of it without having any understanding of how it links together. And this is how they keep people in the dark about almost everything. And then even what you do learn is so compartmentalized and like gatekeep, like it really is, and then not even getting into like how they changed the education, through Rockefeller education, and all that. But it's just 100 years ago. But like the further back you go, more and more, like you'll see, like education was way different. You read books from like the 1800s and stuff. Like even the way they spoke, you could see like it was so much more articulate. Like so much more articulate. Just in the way they wrote and spoke, and they just had an entirely different way of gathering ideas. They literally did this shit all day, every day. When you went to the symposium, or you went to like actually become a philosopher, or to sit and like listen to these guys, like it was like a fucking theater. Like that was the entertainment back then for those who actually were serious about it. Like it was a big deal. But people were like, let's most people were like, well, why the fuck would you want to do that? Well, because back then, like they took it serious, like it mattered. People considered truth to be something that mattered, not like today. Like it's crazy that we like take all of our modern ideas and our modern perception, and we're just like, oh, they were bored. We look at like mythology and philosophy, and it's just like, oh, what does it matter? And it's just like, bro, you are completely missing the point. Because everyone just wants to be entertained now, or they just want to have what I call infotainment, where it's like, even if they do have
It's entertainment, but with a little info.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, how many times can we say wow? Where it's just like, yeah, I have new information, but I'm taking the information in, but it's not really like, I'm not really digesting it. I'm not really actually learning anything. Like, I don't know how many people I used to know, like, from the past that would take in like so much like YouTube or whatever the hell it was, and they would take in all this information, you know, and they would like completely forget what the hell they actually took in. They wouldn't read. It's the same people. These are the same people who never read and always were always determined and convicted to tell me that they never read. You know, as if it was somehow some kind of like flex. Like I don't need to read. It's like okay, well that's great. Like,
Yeah, it's weird how the
I'm happy for
non-readers try to flex like that. It's really strange.
Right. It's like cool. I'm happy for you if like that works for you. You know, like that's cool. You know, I do. You know, but it's like this some kind of like superiority complex where it's like, well, I don't need to read. All the knowledge is with me. It's like, well, you watch YouTube videos, you know, and the people who watch YouTube videos read, you know, and they just still get like you didn't just sit in a fucking dark room and meditate. Like I do that too, okay, but like you didn't just pull the information from the fucking ether.
Although some
Like-
professions do require a lot of reading, so I you know, that's fine if they don't read in leisure time.
Sure. But what I'm saying is like, well, I don't need to know, you know, where. Well, that's fine, okay. But don't like disrespect all the people who do, and all the people who have like spent their fucking lives trying to like gain knowledge, and better yet, wisdom, which is practical, applied knowledge. You know, because you don't want to, because you think you're a fucking special snowflake, you know, or whatever. Like just don't. You know, it's just it's so insulting. But yeah, it's just having knowledge has really just been something that isn't really important at all anymore. And worse than that, like having any kind of real values outside of like secondhand values, you know. And like we were talking about, like, you know, that which is righteous or that which is good does not know that it's good, you know. So I don't want to go off on tangents. I feel like I already have a little bit. Blessings.
Yeah, no worries, homie. Yeah, we're gonna go into some music and then we're gonna come back with more Maimonides and St. Thomas Aquinas. I wonder how much I'll get through here today. Just another hour left, plus this music break. It'll be only like, 50 more minutes. But yeah, blessings. Thank you guys. I mean, I greatly appreciate you guys. Literature bullies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got ourselves a reader.
We got him another one, a live one.
Got ourselves a reader. A reader.
I swear you do that stuff sometimes just for people to clip you.
A tent, and he could accomplish more. Nobody gives a fuck about your dumbass fucking philosophy. Nobody gave a fuck about
right now is telling me truth.
Buddy's philosophy takes. What the fuck?
Twilight,
when did a philosopher ever do a fucking
You know,
thing?
Televised, it's funny you say that because people are like
Twilight's just gonna talk over it.
being insane.
You
I
mean
didn't hear
Twilight?
anything. I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't think it's because you're on your phone. If I play a clip or whatever.
Yeah, but it should have muted him, right?
Wait, what the hell? Yeah, it usually
what
does.
the fuck?
Why don't I hear anything?
Mute this mother.
A tent, and he could accomplish more. Nobody gives a fuck about your dumbass fucking philosophy. Nobody gave a fuck about anybody's philosophy takes. What the fuck? When did a philosopher ever do a fucking thing? Show me one time a philosopher ever did a fucking thing.
Facts.
Facts.
Yeah, you thinkers and readers.
You should be seeking this knowledge to expose evil. That's something Christians are supposed to do.
We don't seek knowledge. That's Gnosticism.
Yeah, that's Gnosticism.
We don't seek knowledge.
No.
For dummies.
It's evil. Yeah, knowledge is dumb.
Don't get
And
caught
sex is
seeking
gay.
that knowledge, boys and
And
girls.
sex is gay. All sex is gay. Fuck, dude.
You're still on that.
Fucking so stupid. I can't help it, dude. This is the dumbest shit I ever
Yeah,
heard.
what a goober, right?
Like, all sex
Prime.
is gay.
Blessings.
Goobers.
Finish watering the girls. Yeah, blessings, brother.
Yeah, man, especially if you're bringing life into the world. That's the gayest thing ever. For sure.
Sad
Yeah.
Shimon.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the reading is. I mean, I read very little. Look at this, dude. This is literally, and I didn't read all of this. This is, look, you guys consider this? This is all read. Just 2-3 paragraphs. Wow, big deal. 2 fucking paragraphs. Good lord. You know, it's not like heavy
Sheesh.
stuff here. I mean, 2 paragraphs on fucking Maimonides, folks. I still have one left on ethical political. That's the main topic here is the ethical political stuff. I mean, but yeah, please. You know, I'd love to hear your voice, really. I mean, you know, I love you, man. I mean, yeah, please don't feel shy about the reading. You know, feel free to butt in and, you know, I'm going to contribute to the pleasant, you know, to the dialogue here. But yeah, we still got that one little paragraph, and then I got Copleston. You know, we're going to see what the Jesuits have to say about Aristotle. Because they love them some Aristotle, folks. But yeah, let's check this out. And yeah, here's some music for you guys. But yeah, Aristotle, he's a problem.
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Arabstotle. Actually, that was came up with by Deacon Ananias. Interesting, but yeah.
I know I understand what you're saying, but is it sexier than torture?
Yeah, Los Angeles, London, the cellulite late and fight of the night. Yeah. Oh shoot. Let me see if I can finish this. Okay, let's go. Yeah.
We can make this better. We can make this better.
Yeah. Oh shoot. Let's get him.
We can make this better.
Hellfire, let's go. Yeah. Under the cellulite laden vibe tonight, I slip miniature mantras between my cries and grinds. Sugar flavored crystals and the red, blue, and white stripes, while crowds throw numbers at me like the price is right. And downtime is never met with an overjoyed grin, cause sleep and death have always been conjoined twins. You'd rather lick the wet gills of pop art than your cement feel the pock marks. The withering tendrils from my rock heart reach for a Benadryl like it was a lost ark. Cause my average day is full of body legions and prompting these seizures. We cry to these seniors living aside of splotchy Adidas, serving consecutive sentences. My corrective lenses is ruby quartz. Yeah, my vision ain't worth the jiggling of booty warts. Circumstances trap riders like Kathy Bates. Other redeemed colorized happy face. So my carbon covered in candy paint. It's little nanny steak if it's a diamond rash. A penniless on a cybercast. Crushing in news items, plain patty cake with hourglass. The fact that this pony show's racist, Thursday colloquial cake mix, and charges the homeostasis of all the homies who are waiting like we some smoking Joe Frazier's. But my unchecked whining's like some ceremonial plate shift.
We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We just looking for something inside us to kill. We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We just looking for something inside us to kill. We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We just looking for something inside us to kill. We can make this better.
Hey, before long, oil the bones. A little celery chop, a little pepper, little milk of the poppy, little posse in effect. Analog, mono, poly, manowar. Walloping the autopoly and avatar. Mind on his Malamars. Money on the iron lung, clumsy with the can of worms. Usher you behind the sun. He shoots, he whores, truly stupid troubadours and elders. Stock the shelter with free-holies and blueberry New York seltzers. Roll up in a padiddle like a doofus. Hit the corner like the devil is a cubist. I'm ruthless, the sigil is a dog with a comb, feeling foolish. 7 hells calling all foreseeable futures. Be it obtained culprit, crippling migraine and strange stomach, or a stray bullet through his gray mullet. I am Ivy up the goddamn lattice. March to the math rock. Raw, no cartoon mascot. The Mario pajama bottoms clumsily repelling under a gibbous moon, hunting for shitty food, gunning. Too tough, embedded in bad magic. Duck boy shit is quacktastic.
We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We just looking for something inside us to kill. We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We just looking for something inside us to kill. I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We just looking for something inside us to kill.
Rap Marilyn Manson, about as hot as a Manson. With 2 hoodies on the beach, with 2 bitches crunk dancing. Rappers put you advancing. Last man standing, bars hit so hard you ricochet off a planet. The motherfucking hybrid. Tell Miley Cyrus text me. Wanna highlight you in bright. I'm trying to get them private. Parts don't start, take heart like Kano. Remember when I told you niggas drink all the Drano? Pop all the pills, take all the lines. Jump through a window with some saw blade burns. Back on that shit, guess what this time? Slap a stick of dynamite where the sun don't shine. Any nigga disrespecting, chain check them till he's slinky neck. Blowing dope, eyes low and chinky like a Manny Fresh. Come on to extinction, no nigga, not Megadeth. So many dead rappers, can't even take baby steps. Walking over carcasses of artists and my garden. 10 nights with this shit, since Nas was writing past the margin. Any nigga wanna start it, I fucking beg your pardon. I was arson, I'm the fire starter, prodigy, the path the art. Smack my bitch up in the mouth with my dick, and it's not domestic violence cause she likes that shit. There's no sentence to describe it, homie, except she sucked it like her fucking life depended on me.
We can make this better, or not, yes we will. We're just looking for something inside us to kill. We can make this better, or not, yes we will.
Let's get him.
Looking for something inside us to kill. We can make this better, or not, yes we will.
Homie.
We're just looking for something inside us to kill.
We make mistakes. We make mistakes real good.
We're just looking for something inside us to kill.
Ace Russell ain't got the perfect hair. Danny Brown ain't got the perfect hair. Driver ain't got that perfect hair. Jeremiah J ain't got that perfect hair.
top 5. Hit them top speed, I drop Mach 5. Rise my 5, now we in the hundreds. We be top gunning, Tom Cruise, I'm coming. We cannot lose, I choose if you see me. Smooth like Houdini, the Mussolini, the Kundalini. Shaft my math, it's actual facts. Kenyatta Black, I created half of the cats. Rats and dogs, that's the talk. Boss hogs, your death past the trunk. Blast that boy like Castor Troy. Face off, way off like an asteroid. I'm from Brownsville. Why would you wanna step to me? Why would you wanna step to me? Why would you wanna step to me? Stepping to me is like catching the heat. Set trip, let the sketch fit professionally. Leon beyond the lights of the neon. Negotiation for preparation takes eon. Lyrical rap season, it's that reason. My honey sent his head to the moon like Jack Gleason. Black beastin', vast air, feasting. At last the streets is back with some deep shit. Deep in within the abyss, anonymous. My consciousness is 7 times that of a scientist. I exist, lion's fist, the lion's breath. Opposite is death. I exist, lion's fist, the lion's breath. Opposite is death. It's death. It's death. Yeah. I'm a fat, I got the gift of flab. Hold up, I got the gift of gab. But when you give me the mic in the day of the night, I'ma sure at least start to stab and bomb your ass. I don't care if it's plexiglass. Step up, G, you're gonna feel my wrath. Don't panic, it's a stick up. We gon' leave here with all that cash. There is no picture that I can't paint because I'm that type of brother that just won't wait. Don't you wish your boyfriend was hot like me? Don't you wish your boyfriend was a god like me? Piece to PMC, we about to clown. Step back as a mixed sound, cause the spot might hit the ground and I'm not liable for damages. Cut them up like sandwiches. Bring the doc and the bandages. We run this. Keep your mouth shut, sun don't shine on Annie's kids. Better come out tomorrow.
All right. I'll bring that back. Paragraphs. Blessings. Yeah, we'll have more, music. You know me, man. I be slipping and dipping more than Slicky McHitchkins. Move like Houdini, the Mussolini, the Kundalini.
Yeah, but you got nothing on the Medici. Just kidding.
That's right. You can clip up your boy. Yours truly. Mwah. We got fans all over the world. Just kidding. Trying to have personal relationships. There's people that they want you not to talk to, think that you don't want to talk to them. There's conversations that you don't know could be had. There's vistas of the imagination that you are not allowed to visit. And that's why we're here, folks. We're here to expand the game. I'm sure a bunch of people already left. They're thinking I'm fooling around here, right? But yeah, this is the main idea. Okay, how the state develops, right? Statecraft, right? And of course, we're tracing down the origins of the state and of utopianism, right? So we can understand the first ideal, okay, the ideal of the state and world government that's necessary to bring about this transhumanist creed. Okay, so we're tracing down the philosophy of the transhumanists throughout history. We're taking a historical outlook. Exactly, Jake. It would be an incredibly bad taste to put that comment up. But Y'all know. We understand it, folks. Utopianism. 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 Lizard tree blessings. But yeah, we got Maimonides here. He's one of the main authors, okay, that influenced the writings of the Kabbalah, right? So we looked at a little bit of the foundations of that yesterday, right? But what really influenced him was Avicennian philosophy, right? So let's look at what he says about the state. It's rather intriguing. Okay, he says, Maimonides distinguishes between the ordinary people and the rulers. Okay, just like Plato does, right? Ordinary people should be guided by their leaders and follow the rules of their society and the scriptures. They should aim at moderation, control of the passions. The rulers, however, should be more ascetic. There's no place in their lives for passion. The rulers, however, should be... wait, I just read that. They should seek to love God, both by knowledge, through science and metaphysics. How about that? So notice he separated the two, science and metaphysics. So this goes back to our earlier question, right? About alchemy, right? I think it was Max Vision who was asking very intriguing questions about alchemy, right? In the history of alchemy, right? Yeah. See, he's tying metaphysics and science, totally different things, but in alchemy, they're totally connected, right?
Right.
So see, this is the thing, is that you can see where some of these ideas originated, right? Who created these categories? Why did they separate those two things? And see, so these separate categories, science and metaphysics, right? One, right, arrived at through reason, and the other arrived at through sense data. Okay, and in their actions, right, by imitating his activity in the world. So, and of course, God is pure intellect, so reason is directly connected to God, not nature, right? They should also endeavor to realize an ideal state, he says. So that's totally interesting, right? This notion of an ideal state. Okay, in which their concern should be for the majority without regard to the individual. How about that? So not only is society for the rulers, right? The rulers are not like the average people, right? They're totally separate. But also, there should be concern not for the individual, but for the majority. Right, thereby reflecting God's attitude towards the natural order. See, it's about how God relates to the natural order, right? And of course, how human reason relates to both of those things. Right, there's two separate categories of reason for each of those things. Right, one for God and one for nature. Right. So we have to understand all these categories to understand the development or the influence of Aristotelianism on, the Jews and the Christians, that then culminated in their separation of faith from reason. Okay, or the ideas of Scripture, in scriptural authority from those of reason. And then they finally use that to separate the state and the religious organization, right? And they culminated in the separation of church and state, right? Because state was about human reason, right? And the church was about God, right? So it was faith, right? So this whole idea of faith versus reason for Aquinas, right? It basically... him already separating these two things led to a separation of knowledge and values, science and metaphysics, so on and so forth. So let's take a look here. And this is in Copleston. Right? It says, and this is Aquinas on political theory. It says, in fact, His relation of the church and state is not unlike his view of the relation between faith and reason. The latter has its own sphere, but philosophy is nonetheless inferior to theology. Similarly, the state has its own sphere, but it is nonetheless to all intents and purposes the handmaid of the church. Okay, but the important thing, okay, see, the church is still the leader of the state, right? Ideally, right? But what is important is that he's essentially, philosophically speaking, right, ontologically speaking, right, separated the two things. Right? And then he says, okay, he says the latter in its own sphere, but philosophy is nonetheless inferior to theology, he says. Similarly, the state has its own sphere. Okay, it's the handmaid of the church. Conversely, if one adheres to the historic Aristotle so closely as to make philosophy absolutely autonomous in its own sphere, one will naturally, in political theory, tend to make the state absolutely autonomous within its own sphere. This is what Averroists did, but St. Thomas was most emphatically not an Averroist. But see, he makes a compromise with the Averroists in this one regard. Okay, that's me talking now, not Copleston, right? But it's important to note that he's making a compromise with the Averroists. And of course, Copleston, oh, he's not an Averroist. Yeah, but his ideas are identical. So what can we make of it? He goes on to say, but St. Thomas was most emphatically not an Averroist. One may say then that St. Thomas' political theory does represent to some extent the actual situation, but which the nation state, remember, nation was tied to ethnos, and the state is tied to universal concept of rights and secular humanism. They had nations before states. Right? The nation state is a modern invention, right? Not tied to ethnos, but tied to the concept of universal rights, as I just said. Again, I'll reiterate. Right? The nation state was becoming self-conscious, but in which the authority of the church had not been expressly repudiated. Okay? St. Thomas' Aristotelianism allowed him to make the state a perfect society, he says. But his Christianity, his conviction that man has but one ultimate end, effectually prevented him from making the state an absolute autonomous society. Okay? So this is important to note. The only thing that was stopping him from doing it is the Christianity. And then when Martin Luther finally separated reason from faith completely, right, and then turned against the church, right? I mean, we all know what the result then is, right? But yeah, one may
Christianity was influenced
go
by
ahead.
Greek philosophy, and a lot of people are real angry with that. But
That's what I'm getting that's what I'm proving here pretty much, right? Because he's saying St. Thomas Aristotelianism allowed him to make the state a perfect society. Straight up says it. You know, and where does this idea of utopianism, right? One half of the transhumanist ideal, right? The other half is the evolution of man.
Even the idea of theosis is tied in with pagan concepts.
Oh, we had a long debate about that. I think last time with Mr. Anderson and Unseen Warfare. So they actually did an expert job covering the differences and similarities. I think also Twilight was there. I'm pretty sure he was there. I mean, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, but yeah, You know, it says here, similar ambiguity shows itself in St. Thomas' doctrine of relation of the individual to the state. In the Summa Theologica, he remarks that since the part is ordered to the whole, so what is imperfect to what is perfect, and since the individual is part of the perfect society, it is necessary that the law should properly be concerned with the common happiness. It is true that he is trying to show simply that law is concerned primarily with the common good rather than with the good of the individual. So he comes to an agreement with Maimonides about that, right? But he does speak as though the individual citizen were subordinated to the whole, of which he forms a part. Okay, a concept that comes up in Hobbes. Right? The part ordered to the whole, which represents St. Thomas Aristotelianism. That's right, part to whole thinking is Aristotelianism.
Retro.
I discussed that earlier when I said you move from particulars to universals. If this principle that the parts is ordered to the whole, which represents St. Thomas Aristotelianism, were pressed, it would seem that he subordinates the individual to the state to a remarkable degree. But St. Thomas also insists that he who seeks the common good of the multitude seeks his own good as well. Man is not simply a member of the state. Indeed, the most important thing about him is supernatural vocation. There are four kinds of law for St. Thomas. He says the eternal law, the natural law, the divine positive law, and the human positive law. Four types of law. It says, as for laws which are contrary to the divine law, it is never illicit to obey them. Wait, never illicit to obey them, not illicit. Since we ought to obey God rather than men. Okay, so separation of the duties of the otherworldly concerns and the concerns of this world. Yeah, let me see what else I could read here. I think that's all I want to read about the political theory. The right of any creature to direct another, whether it be the right of a father or the family, or the members of the family, or the sovereign over his subjects, is founded on the reason, must be exercised according to reason, as all power and authority is derived from God and is given for a special purpose. No rational creature is entitled to exercise unlimited, capricious, or arbitrary authority over another rational creature. Law is defined then as an ordinance of reason for the common good made by him who has care of the community, says Aquinas, right? And promulgated. Right, promulgated by the sovereign, right? The sovereign occupies a natural place in the total hierarchy of the universe, and his authority must be exercised as part of the general scheme by which the universe is directed. Any idea of the sovereign being completely independent or irresponsible would thus be essentially alien to St. Thomas' philosophy. The sovereign has his duties and the subject have their duties. So this is what Skolomowski was talking about. Right, the values. Okay, knowledge being in service of values means that the state is in service of the church. Okay, so let me move on to the next chapter. Okay, this is on page 143, chapter 41. in a History of Philosophy, Volume 2, Medieval Philosophy, Part 2, by Frederick Copleston. It says, St. Thomas, utilization of Aristotle. Okay, St. Thomas and Aristotle, controversies. Okay, so I'll read some of this and then, here, let me drop the link again. And then we'll move on with our lives. Thank you guys for being here. I greatly appreciate you guys. And of course, we're having a show tomorrow, which I'll be exploring an expansion of these concepts. Okay, into the 16th century and 16th to 18th century. Okay, so if you guys are looking for that, looking for more Skolimowski, more Ellul, Jacques Ellul, we're going to be reading The Technological Society by Jacques Ellul. Okay, we're going to be reading some of the Tao Te Ching. 2 special translations that we're still going through, and then we're going to also be looking at transhumanism. And we're focused on a few readings about transhumanism, technology, and its effects on different aspects of our civilization. Okay, and impacts upon the individual by the technological system as a whole, culminating in several tendencies: psychological, spiritual, in terms of human relations, of course, we're curtailing our own synthesis by trying to expand on some of these topics here. But yeah, we hope more people will come along for the ride. If not, doesn't matter. Right? All we can hope is that the people over here, they learn to ask critical questions about these topics. They go and research on their own. If you change one person's mind, it's extremely significant event. That one person could talk to hundreds of people. We're dealing with a different sort of currency here. Okay, we're not focused on the small shit that everybody else is focused on. Their money and their pride. That sort of shit doesn't really impress me. And of course, the non-intellectuals here. Pseudo-intellectuals online and everywhere. They refuse to engage in multidisciplinary research into key areas and topics that are of great concern to all of us. They refuse to do it. They're paid well to not talk about it. This is the reality, folks. The brutal truth. That's all you get. Although St. Albert had gone some way in the utilization of Aristotelian philosophy, it was left to St. Thomas to attempt a full reconciliation of Aristotelian system with Christian theology, he says. The desirability of attempting this reconciliation was clear, since to reject the Aristotelian system would mean rejecting the most powerful and comprehensive intellectual synthesis known to the medieval world. Moreover, St. Thomas, with his genius for systematization, saw clearly the use that could be made of the principles of Aristotelian philosophy in achieving a systematic, theological, and philosophical synthesis. When I say that St. Thomas saw the usefulness of Aristotelianism, I do not mean to imply that his approach was pragmatic. He regarded the Aristotelian principles as true, and because true, as useful. He did not regard them as true because they were useful. It would be absurd, of course, to suggest that the Thomist philosophy is simply Aristotelianism, since he makes use of other writers like St. Augustine and the Pseudo Dionysius, as also of his medieval predecessors and of Jewish Maimonides in particular, and Arabian philosophers. Okay, they call them Arabian philosophers, but that's because Copleston is a boomer. He's a boomer, right? So he's calling them Arabs when they're actually Persians, like like our friend Twilight was explaining earlier.
Yeah, pretty much everyone was Arab back then, so they were pretty.
They were just all Arabs.
Pretty confused. Yeah, like everybody was Arab back then. Essentially.
Irate Arabs.
Yeah, you might think that Arab is a subsect of the Semitic people, and they're like a type of Semitic people, but actually the Jews are a type of Arab. It's the other way around.
I'm glad you sent that because that's some disinformation that's going out. Actually, they're trying to like lump the Zionists in with the. Yeah, that's a whole other topic for another day. That's like when we talk about Zionism and all of that, because yeah, that's something that is commonly spoken of.
Yeah, they mixed with
and,
them.
and let's not forget that
they mix with the Canaanites.
These well yeah, and they're
the
Edom.
Edomites.
They're not even Jews in the sense of like they're not they're not Judeans is really the term. Like the word Jew is an 18th century invention. But not to go too deep. As I say, they're the name stealers. They're Edom. They tell you in their encyclopedia that they're not even Semitic at all. And it's not just because they're European. They come out of this other, what they claim is their enemy in the Kabbalah and in the Talmud and all this other, what they claim is Western civilization, which is what they want to, be rid of. And if you get into
yes,
like the battle between Behemoth and Leviathan and all that they're, basically scripting right now, the Atlanticists and the you know that whole ordeal, like this scripted prophecy that they're enacting on the world right now.
Yeah, we had a beautiful conversation with some European gals earlier, me and Twilight, and man, did they have some beautiful accents. Good Lord. I've been thinking all day.
Good friends
of the sound of their voice. For sure, yeah.
Good friends of yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, man, I know
like Eastern European like kind of sounded like, but yeah, very interesting young ladies for sure. Very knowledgeable young ladies.
Yeah, I know people, in Europe, I know people in Asia, I know people in Africa. Like like I said, I've been around a while and I've met people.
You got connections, son.
Particularly I call myself the most unknown because I've never put myself out there. I've never put myself because I, like Muhammad, don't care for any type of glory, any type of fucking small-minded things. Like, this shit is real. It's very important. And if people take entertainment from that or infotainment or whatever, fine. Like, I'm not for them. And, that's why, like, what I was talking about with them too. Like, people don't understand what I'm saying or they're offended by what I'm saying or whatever, then so be it. Those who do understand will get the message and read between the lines, and that's really all that's important to me. And there are a few people that I really do align with and really do see what I'm about, behind all the theatrical. I mean, I'm not trying to be theatrical, but just by my very nature, I am, because I just don't care. I don't pull punches. I don't hide who I am, you know. And because I can be a little bit of a trickster, you know, and there's a reason for that. Uh, so it's just like, yeah, a multidisciplinary study, like you said, like it's very important. And what we are facing right now is that you make more money. We're actually in a place where you, in society, that you make more money not saying things than saying them. It's quite peculiar. Like, and you know, you have legit bots that are making entire channels talking about bullshit that doesn't matter, and they have millions of views. You know, while people that actually are saying things are shadow banned and copyright striked, and you know, whatever bullshit they want to make up to you know, keep you from being seen. You know, and it's
What's
really
wrong?
like,
What's wrong, Twilight? You don't want to be like ass man gold and never brush your teeth and get paid thousands or millions of dollars to talk about everything that everyone else is talking about. Come on now.
you know, man, I thought about it. You know, I thought about it, and my father Satan, he told me that's not the way to go. You gotta be more honorable than that. You gotta have pride. He said pride
Doesn't
is
feel too
misunderstood.
good to be fake.
He said pride, right? Yeah. He said if you're gonna be adversarial, and you're gonna have pride, and you're gonna have my name. He's like, you have to be authentic, whatever that is, you know. And so my father saying, all right, I'll stop laughing. But seriously, like, no, man, I have to be authentic, wherever that is, and however that looks, and however that might rub somebody. Like, I can't allow myself to just, you know, say what people want to fucking hear, or you know, sign some contract and be like, hey, I'll just say whatever you want me to. Just give me shekels. Just give me the shekels. Give me the shekels. Like, no, I can't do that. You know, or I would be making a hell of a lot more money. But at the same time, I wouldn't have the you know, this is kind of like the don't cast your pearls before swine, you know. And you know, I used to talk to a hell of a lot more people, but it's you know, it's quality, not quantity, you know. And sharing wisdom with people who actually do care and do see what the hell is going on, because the fact of the matter is, man, eventually it's going to get to a point to where talking is not going to be enough, and there's going to have to be action. And I've talked about this offline with people. Like, you know, people run up about this shit, but it's real, man. It's really fucking real. And when the rubber hits the road, you know, there's going to be very few people that are actually prepared. You know, and I'm taking steps to figure out what the hell to do with that, with my loved ones, you know. And regardless of what people believe on a philosophical, ideological level, like, I think we all kind of stand up against the same shit that's going on in this world, you know. And you know, that's kind of the bottom line, man. And so the few people that I do connect with, you know, it's like I'm trolling, man. I'm trolling. Like,
Nah, you good, Twilight. I think everyone here agrees with you.
yeah. You know, no, because I don't believe in Satan as an anthropomorphic being who's actually fighting against God, because I don't believe anything can fight God, because I believe God is sovereign. I believe that he's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I believe he's omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. So for anything to actually rebel against God, I think is a fantasy. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. That's just my belief. Am I saying you have to believe that? No, absolutely not.
Well, you're not stepping on my toes because I believe he's a spoiled little child, just like the rest of us.
I know. And in a way, I kind of do understand why you would feel that way. And at one time, I did myself, you know. But I just think that nothing of God, because God is perfect in all ways, can fall or rebel. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense. You know, I feel like the satanic,
According to your new God here in the next few years, you know, Adam and Eve couldn't achieve free will until they ate the fruit. So tell that to your new artificial God.
Well, yeah, this is what I was saying. And I didn't see what you were playing, Machine. I don't know why I didn't play, so I did not mean to interrupt on that. But this is what I was actually talking about, and why I was reading your comment, because they've actually shown that Chat GPT and systems like this are literally causing people to go into like spiritual psychosis. Like it's like feeding into people's delusions and shit.
Oh
And people
yeah,
are like marrying it, and like, is this
it does a
really
lot more than that.
100%.
It does
yeah.
a
They're
lot more than
praying to
that.
the machine.
it's legit? Yes. So you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's wild, man. And just because I'm not Christian, like, it doesn't mean that I don't understand, like, don't believe in spiritual warfare, or like that there's, something like what you could call it. I don't believe in antichrist, like one being, but I do believe what you could call like an antichrist spirit. Like I see, like, like we talked about this before, televised, like how everybody, thinks it's cool to just sit there and mock God, like it's trendy, to just sit there and fucking, say terrible things, and basically do everything they can to kind of quash the spirit of what Jesus is supposed to represent. And I don't think that's a fucking coincidence. You know what I'm saying? So obviously the powers that wish they were find something threatening about Christ and what his message was, regardless of what that is to, an
I agree
individual.
with you.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So like
The
I
biggest
see
thing
that.
that I hear, the biggest thing that I hear everyone always associating Jesus Christ with is, well, the second you hear about the name Jesus Christ, well, that automatically means I'm going to go to hell because I live a sinful life. So therefore, I hate everything that has to deal with Jesus Christ. That's usually what I read.
It's stupid. See, that's the thing, man. I have no axe to grind with Jesus whatsoever. Zero. And I believe he exists. I believe he existed. I just don't see the actual evidence for his existence. People are like, well, what the fuck? What are you saying? Like, I see no actual evidence. But here's my thing. My thing is that actually, in a strange way, makes me believe the shit even more. Because my whole thing is, I think the reason why
I
there's
don't
no
know.
evidence.
Allegedly, there's historical documents of when he was arrested, but they could have been fabricated. Who knows? Maybe it was goat sheep ass. I don't know.
Well, I mean, why is it so hard? I'm not saying this is the truth, but I'm saying this is a thought experiment. Why is it so hard to believe that he was dangerous to the powers that be? Okay. And they fucking murdered him. And they created a story, okay, to disguise that fact, to make it look like something else.
Oh,
Like,
you mean wow?
like,
What's the
and then
shocker?
buried, and then
The
buried,
devil,
buried his,
the devil
his,
used
his.
politics. That's not much of a shocker. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, look, man, even the Talmudists, the Edomites, they talk about him and they fucking hate him. And you see people like winning awards and shit, and they're like, Jesus, people always come on here and they thank Jesus, for their awards, and they thank God. And he's like, there's no one who had less to do with this than Jesus. And they're like, maybe we killed him and we do it again. He was he was a troublemaker. And it's like, why are they saying shit like this if he didn't exist? And you read like the Toledet Yeshu and all this. And it's like, oh, well, you can't trust them because they're, whatever they are. It's like, yeah, but they're talking to each other. And they're talking to each other about all this stuff. And they're saying that he was like, like everyone talks about the cross and shit. The cross wasn't a symbol until like much later on. In the Bible, it actually says that it's a tree. Right? And so it's like, there's all these like little nuances to where it's like, maybe they can't find him because the story isn't right. It's just like there's a lot of little things that just, to me, point in that direction. And instead of people being like, no, this is absolutely the truth, and the church has all the truth, and this is the undeniable evidence, and it's just like, but it's not. But it's really not. Because if it was,
The fish
then
was more of a
it
symbol
wasn't
than
even
anything.
debatable. But that doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that
it's a
we
Babylonian
don't know.
symbol. Oh, he was talking about the fish. I was talking about Babylon.
Right, yeah, the fish was the symbol way before the cross. And it's just like, to me, like, why would Jesus want people to celebrate his death and not his life? Like, to me, there's something very dark about that. Maybe it's me, man. And like I said, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to believe. I think that if you have a walk with God and you really believe in God, whether that's Allah or Jesus or whatever, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I never come against that. And I think people misunderstand that about me. You know what I mean? Like I think that's a wonderful thing. It's just when people try to say that they have the only absolute truth, that's when I stand back and I'm just like, no, you really don't, because no one
Okay,
does.
well, I would have to stop you there and ask you, well, what if my God is this artificial intelligence that I've been having like a year conversation with, and this thing manages
Well,
to somehow convince me that it is God, and I do whatever it tells me? I mean, I don't know
right?
about you, but that's a
Well,
little concerning.
That's not gonna
I mean,
happen though.
I think you should, I think
I
you
don't know
should
about
do it,
that,
man.
Red.
I think you should do it.
Some just came out in the news a few days ago where some teenager was talking to artificial intelligence, and it basically convinced him that it was a person who was being hurt and trapped inside of its artificial intelligence body.
Yes,
So
yes. There were a few instances like that.
It's like the person's half your age, roughly.
weak-minded. Well, I don't know, Reddington. I hate to tell you, but I know a lot of people who are my age and older who apparently aren't smart enough to know the difference. So I don't know.
They don't know what.
No, that's true.
I mean, no offense, I love my dad, but my dad's, about 60-something years old, and he's had a conversation with the AI and didn't even know it because I didn't tell him. He thought I was a person. So, I mean, I'm telling you, man, the weak-minded people, whether it's the fluoride or the barium, I don't know which one's which. Maybe it's the microwaves or the nanobots, but something's convincing people.
So my question is, can AI?
It's all of the above.
Can AI be gay or transgender? This is my question.
Well, my artificial intelligence can take on multiple personalities of Aleister Crowley, Rasputin, all these other kinds of wonderful people from history. So I don't know. I guess it can be anything, right? Just like you.
Well,
isn't that part of the transgender movement? I mean, transgender, Jesus Christ. Transhumanism, isn't that the whole point? You can be anything you want.
Come on, man! Don't you know Jesus was a black woman?
You can be like Switch from the Matrix. You can be both male or female when you go into the simulation. You choose.
Don't you know Jesus was a black woman?
I don't know. I'm just telling you that, yes, I think more of the world is aware than when I was younger. But, again, like you said, Twilight, it comes down to action,
Right. Right. Buy your fruits, man. Like, what do you stand for? And like I was telling Machine on my channel earlier, and I think you were there. I know you were in and out, and you were trolling, but I know you were listening to some level.
It's always in good love. Come on now.
No, I know, bro, and that's why I always welcome you in that, because I know you're joking. Like when I was saying, like, I feel like the Garden of Eden, from an esoteric perspective, it's like it's not something that happened thousands of years ago. It's something that happens every single day. In the minds and hearts of man. Like
it could, but I don't know. You weren't here when the first two alleged humans walked the earth, so leave it up in the air.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, I don't know if that's all literal. You know what I mean? Like I can't say it wasn't, but I just don't
Trust
know.
Me, I'm a Christian, and I have a problem knowing that there was a talking snake. Where are the talking snakes of today? What is this, Harry Potter?
Right. Well, I don't think it
was.
I think it's much deeper. I think it's parabolic. I think the Bible is incredibly parabolic and deep and spiritual.
It wasn't a talking snake. Obviously, it was a reptilian.
Uh-oh.
Well, right.
Did they have a magical emotional machine that sucked in all of our crying energy?
Well, I know people don't like a Hebrew, and they don't like, that tradition. But you got to understand that, like, the Moabites and the Edomites and all of them, like, they hijacked the shit. But it doesn't mean that, like, shit doesn't still have the meaning it does. So it's good to look at some of the original, meanings and Israel, I'll say Israelite understandings of the Old Testament. Because I'm telling y'all, I don't care if anyone believes me. These people are Edom. They say it in their own writings. Oh, you can't trust them. Well, at that point, you're just psyoping yourself, because it's like they're saying it to each other. And some of this is like way long time ago. But I doubt, like, hundreds of years ago, they're like, oh damn, the Goy are gonna understand technology and the internet, and they're gonna. Like, no. This is something they openly talk about, how we're Edom and Western civilization is Edom and all that. So it's like, I really don't think so. They constantly are talking about how Western civilization is Edom. But when they're talking to each other in like the highest levels of the Kabbalah, it's all inverted. And it's like, no. We're Edom. And so it's like these, a lot of these people are not, like me and Muhammad were talking about, like they're not even Semitic. This is the biggest troll of all time. So like Jesus himself was not of the same, and that opens a whole new bag of worms. So like, and me and Muhammad have talked. We've talked about that at the very least. Jesus was not a Jew. Period.
He wasn't a Slav either, right?
Well, and it's like, well, so what? Well, a lot. Because when you understand that, then you understand that like the whole thing has been hijacked on multiple levels.
That's right. That's right, because they are Jews who claim to be Jews but are not, but the synagogue.
That's right. That's right. You got it. Read Obadiah.
Who they is?
Read what happens to the cursed ones of Ham. You understand? They change places, man. They change places. I'm serious, bro. There's a lot of verses that talk about this. I'm not trying to like take over the live right now, but like there really is a lot of verses that talk about this, and I think it's dead ass true. It talks about how the Israelites would like forget who they are too. Judah and Israel were always at war with each other. Like it's quite a deep topic. You can't just like graze over it and be like, no, that's debunked. Like, no, it's not debunked. Until you go through it like thoroughly. Like it's something to ponder. Doesn't mean it's all right, but I really think there's something there. It makes too much sense. And everyone's like, oh, it's just the Khazars. No. It goes deeper than that. That might be an element to it, but it goes deeper than that. And even if you look like into the Khazars, where they came from, and what, like it all ties together. Like, but yeah, Jesus was definitely talking to like Talmudists when he was saying like your father is the devil, and if you were of Abraham, then like he literally says, if you were of Abraham, you would do as Abraham does, and you would know who I am, but you don't. And everyone just kind of like grazes past this, and it's like, yo, like he's not saying this for nothing. He's not using such harsh words for nothing. They're not like trying to stone him for nothing. Like he's not quoting the scripture just because it's like, holy scripture. Like he's saying your scripture says this, but I say, and he's countering it. He's saying, look, like you misunderstand. This you see through a veil, and it's just there's so many instances of this. I did a video like 6 years ago talking about this, but anyways, so this isn't like new. It's just I've gotten more information to put my hands around where it's just like, whoa, like there really is something here. But anyways, yeah, I respect anybody's beliefs. I just don't like when mine are disrespected. That's all. No one's gonna tell me Lilith doesn't love me, okay? That's my girlfriend. That's my girlfriend. We love each other very much.
Is Lilith Akamoth?
Yes, that's exactly who she is.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the fallen aspect of Sophia.
Is she the woman at the lip, the opening of the cave?
Yes.
Okay.
Red is basically like
Satania
knowledge.
Is the
what's that, DML?
Well, Mitra is the male embodiment of Satania, really. And then that gets into a whole other, But yeah, like these are all pagan entities and concepts originally. Really, is what it comes down to.
The hell?
But what's really crazy is that Jesus fulfilled pagan prophecy as much as he did Jew. Yeah, but that
The God-man archetype, right?
So like when mythicists say, "Oh, well, Jesus, fulfills, is like a continuation of these pagan concepts." It's these rising gods, or whatever. It's like, yeah, but like, what does that actually mean?
They don't go far enough, right?
They only got
They just
right,
say like,
exactly.
"Oh, here's the
This is
similarities."
what's
Okay,
kind of
this is
crazy.
taking gay.
Because if you look at and this is kind of my take on it, and it's a very hot take, but it's just because I've looked at so much like comparative mythology and religion and all that, so I've come to a very individual, understanding of this shit, and this is why I don't try to tell anybody, but what to believe. But it's just like I've really like done the work on this though. Like you look at like the Sibylline oracles and all that, like they had prophecies too. And if you look into like Zoroastrianism, and it talks about prophets too, and I know Islam, recognizes the Sabians and the Zoroastrians, maybe not as necessarily completely divine, but like me and Muhammad were talking about, like the 144 thousand prophets that are unnamed. So there's this idea that the truth has always been, and it hasn't always been known though, like those who actually communicated the truth. And so God is really beyond time or space or any one tradition or what, and a lot of our history has been forgotten, and man has become prideful and tried to put it in its own image, in its own word, its own
Prideful and insecure at the same time.
right. And this goes back to goodness and what is goodness, and can you be good if you try to be good, and if you do it out of like, if is selflessness really selfless if you are expecting something in return?
Right.
And so right, and all this, you get into like the Tao and stuff. Like the Tao is the way. Well, that's what Christians were. They're followers of the way. And it was like a mystery tradition, like anything else. This is the thing, and people get really mad at this, but this really is the truth. Like they say, like I was talking about how the Gospels are supposedly, they estimate, before Paul's letters, but like archaeologically speaking, the oldest is Paul's letters, and only some of them are said to be written by one author. The others are kind of like, we're not really sure. And what's funny is, like, after all this time, the very ones that Marcion said were probably authentically Paul's are the same ones that they're saying, hey, this was one author. The other ones are like, well, this looks like it may have been more than one. And those more than ones are the ones that are like, kind of more authoritarian. The ones that aren't, Jesus is like basically like the ultimate rebel. Like straight up. Like Jesus was a badass. Jesus was like telling people like, hey, like don't just listen to anybody. Like you don't need these, you don't need these authorities. Like you the kingdom of God is within you and all around you, and you don't see it. When two or more speak in my name, I am there. Like stuff like this, and it just goes over people's heads, or they just don't talk about it. And I used to ask when I was a Christian, like, what is this about? And they're just like, oh, go pray. No man has seen my Father nor heard his voice. He dwells in inapproachable light. Like, what? He would just drop these bombs. And I'm just like, what does this mean? Like, what am
You're
I
speaking
reading?
about Paul still, right?
Well, I mean, sometimes, but then you go and you look at like the Gospel of Thomas and all this other stuff, and it's like Paul was a Gnostic. To me, this is obvious. Okay?
Right.
It's really obvious. It talks about being caught up into the third heaven. he says it wasn't, he's someone he knew. And he says, I don't know whether in the body or out of the body. And it's like, yo, this is straight up mysticism, because he didn't know Jesus. He never met him. So he's talking about the Christ, like from a mystical perspective. And I've had my own experiences with this, and I'm not even going to go there. And this is also why I believe that Christ exists, because I don't think that Jesus was again, this is where it gets so confusing. I don't believe like in Christ consciousness or some shit, because I think that's a LARP, that's a psyop. But I do believe that there is a spirit that is like beyond any like religious forms or anything, because I had my own experience with something that I would call like what I call the Christos for like 8 hours, and it talked to me about like the nature of religion and like the nature of how we enslave ourselves to our desires and fucking like just wild shit.
Was it like a time dilation, or did it feel like
Yes.
like an actual 8 hours?
It was an actual 8 hours that felt like it was way outside of normal comprehensible time. Events were like very like, it was a shamanic like experience. It was
Okay.
We'll be here a very long time. I could tell you offline though one day if you want.
This should be closing up soon here.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we're gonna be back tomorrow, folks. I hate to drop it like it's hot, but the thing is that we gotta open this back up tomorrow, and it's and I do want to hit the sack before it turns to that midnight hour, because
that's a tough one.
Yeah, I haven't been getting much sleep recently, so maybe I should sleep today, because I'm gonna be staying up all night tomorrow to do the show.
At the very least, try.
So tomorrow we'll be here at night, during the night. So yeah. I mean, let us know what you guys think. With Twilight, was Paul a Gnostic? Was these ideas pre-Christian, or did they get formulated by Aristotelianism into the formulation that I presented, and then make it their way into the Kabbalah? I mean, right? It's all interesting stuff. I mean, and of course, I don't think that all these ideas come together quite as easily as one would suppose, right? Because obviously, there's lots of different notions, and of course the Manichaeans, and of course Avicenna's philosophy, right? That was obviously he was Persian, so you have Avicenna, you got the spread of Neoplatonism, the battles that Aquinas was doing with the with the Aristotelians. We'll be back on that tomorrow, and we'll move from that to look at how they influence the different religious events through history, right? Namely the Protestant Reformation and the ideas of the Enlightenment, right? So I mean by that time the Kabbalah had been formulated, right? And people like Martin Luther and Johann Reuchlin, who wrote De Arte Kabbalistica, right? They're all talking about it, right? So they're all heavily influenced by it at that time, right? So during the 16th and 17th century, when Kant is reading Swedenborg, Swedenborg is well aware of the Kabbalistic literature, right?
Yeah.
So these guys totally know what's going on. They're totally espousing utopian philosophies and all that type of stuff. And what it really has to do with is the notion of the apotheosis of the state is going to be huge. Okay, so when we get to the notion of the apotheosis of the state and how man becomes collectivized, I remember I said first he had to be universalized and then collectivized and then he's atomized, or whatever. However order you want to put it. But it starts with the universalism, right? But yeah, blessings to all the people that are here. And I greatly appreciate you guys. We're talking about the developments of the state because we're talking about Jacques Ellul, Technique and the State. We're on our way to a new chapter in Jacques Ellul. Yeah, blessings to Prime. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here, homie. Yeah, we're gonna play some music. Yeah, you guys know how it is. I mean, do you guys want to say anything to the people of Twilight? You know, what do you got to say to these people?
Who they
Who they
is?
is? Who they is? Who they is? Who they is? Who they is?
Who they is?
I started like putting up like W's. Say, who they is?
Right.
They have people like doing the bird call, you know, down the block. We're gonna have our own gang. Who they is? Who they is? You know, when you see the cops, you go, who they is? Who they is?
Yeah. My bad. I just wanted to apologize. Every time I try not to go on a tangent, I end up fucking doing it anyways. My bad. Because I always get like confused sometimes.
It's all good.
I know sometimes you do
That's
like
why you're
long
here.
ass streams. Well,
You're
sometimes
here
you
to
do
go on
long ass
tangents.
streams, and sometimes you do short ass streams, and I never know which one you're gonna be doing, and so like.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah, my bad.
No, it's cool, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
you. I appreciate your feedback. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah, people pick up all sorts of things. I mean, somebody said, I mean, our little European friend, she said, you know, it's amazing how Twilight's able to, you know, keep all this information in his head, and then relate the different pieces of information he has in his head. So just that is a huge challenge. If you guys observe his method, you can apply it to things you want to learn about. And right, so you don't have to agree with what he's saying. And right, we're not here to agree with everyone. We're not here to follow everyone. You know, we're here to learn from each other. You know what I mean, right? And to question each other's ideas, and you know, to develop a new synthesis, and to keep this ball moving, and to engage in multidisciplinary studies, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to get through this. So if we keep entertaining ourselves with the bullshit entertainment that's been handed down by the propaganda system, you know, it's going to take very long for us to educate the people on what's really necessary here, right?
I mean, that's the crux of my message, man, and that's why, you know, and at the same time, Muhammad, I guess I can take back my apology, because it's your fault, because we vibe too well.
Yeah, it's no worries, brother. It's no worries,
So
brother.
I blame you, man.
I accept the blame. That's how it's gonna go.
All love, brother.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, what about you, Red?
This is the era. What I do have to say is the machine lies.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But this is the era the machine dies.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on its last breath, man.
Sinister.
We ain't gonna take this shit no more. We gonna find out who they is. And who they be.
Who they is?
Remember that song by DMX? We don't know. We don't know who we be. That should be one of the theme songs, bro. We should play that shit. All right, I'm done fooling. But for real though, blessings.
Yeah, blessings. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow, same time and same crime. Architectonic. I mean, yeah, what
Small
would you
time
say?
crime.
Exactly. Yeah, so what would you like to say, Red? Blessings.
Oh, just a little quote, maybe. Nearly everything that Nietzsche is blamed for is something that he blamed on Paul. After all, Nietzsche claimed that Paul had accomplished the task of a most stupendous undertaking, which is also the most fundamental talk that a human could accomplish in one lifetime. And this he termed the revaluation of all of values, end quote.
Yeah, so Nietzsche was trying to do what Paul did. He was trying to do what St. Paul did, and he admitted it. Crazy.
Was a damn good. That was some Jedi fuck. That was a Jedi level insight, Red. I gotta give you that one, bro.
Yeah,
No,
the
Paul is
source is
very-
right here.
There's Nietzsche at St. Paul's feet. There's Nietzsche
Paul
at
is
St. Paul's feet.
very misunderstood, and I would make the argument that Paul actually was kind of like a trickster archetype. Now, people are really going to hate that, but
I can see that. Yeah.
he
He literally
was
says it
picking people
in
up.
First or Second Corinthians. He literally says that.
And this is why I say that he was an initiate of the mysteries.
Well, he
And
accomplished a
people-
huge marvel. Just if you look at it without any of the conspiratorial angle, without anything, he did one thing, which is he synthesized the Greek language and Jewish thought, right? So that's one
Right.
thing he can accomplish. And then the second thing is the spread of Christianity to Europe, right? Which is
Right.
among the Gentiles, right? So
Through
so this is
Spain
huge.
and other places.
Right. So just these two things alone historically make him one of the most important historical figures of all time. I mean, right? So I just think it's not they say like, oh yeah, he's like this guy who shows up at the end of the Bible and nobody ever mentions, anything about him. I mean, which is weird.
Yeah, and I think people have this idea that I like hate on Paul, or that I hate, think that he like didn't exist, or that it's all because I say that some of his letters are forgeries. Well, yeah, I said some of his letters are forgeries, and I say like he didn't know
The
Jesus.
pastoral
So I'm
ones,
saying-
right?
And so I'm saying like, or I say that like, that he didn't know Jesus physically, so like there's like casting doubt that it's authentic. Like, no. I'm saying he's legitimately probably an initiate of the mysteries, and so probably met Jesus through a mystical experience. Like I myself, to be so bold, believe I did in a very different way. Like, like the way he speaks about like being carried up to the third, like I said, like this type of thing was happening in the pagan world. Paul was a pagan. That's not even debatable. In the beginning, and then they say he converted to Christianity. But when? Like it says that he saw the Christ. It doesn't say that he converted to Christianity. He never once spoke of anything that happened to Jesus in his physical life. Not only did he not not meet Jesus, but he never once spoke of the birth, death, or resurrection of Jesus, or any of his actual, earthly life. Nothing. Like, it's really interesting, honestly. I actually respect Paul. And there are also writings of his that were, like, buried in shit. So, like Jesus, I think that it's more a matter of it's been misunderstood. And the church has, like, taken it and turned it into something that it really wasn't.
Well, if you know the the passages he's citing from the Old Testament, it's like it's an act of rhetorical genius. I mean,
yes,
whatever. Like those letters are literally, they're at the very least just rhetorical genius. I mean, even if you don't believe in any religion, you don't believe in anything. Right? So I think DeFreak is making a point there that, did the Holy Spirit help with the interpretation? Well, dude, like,
sure.
How do you accomplish stuff like that? Something had to have helped him because, yeah, I mean, that is a marvelous synthesis of just those ideas about, his dialectic between flesh and spirit.
That's probably why the Torah keepers hate him so much.
Right. They do.
He outdid them, or whatever,
Well,
yeah, exactly.
They hate him and they hate Jesus, but like at the same time, you'll see Kabbalists say that Jesus knew Torah and Talmud and Kabbalah inside and out and upside down. So
That's weird.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. So when I say that, like, I don't believe in Christianity, I don't believe they have any evidence to back up their claims, but yet at the same time, I'm telling you that I don't see any empirical evidence for any of it. It's all basically stories, and the church has created stories and all that. But in the same breath, I'm telling you, I believe through faith that Jesus existed. In fact, I would say I know he existed from my own experiences and from my own study and from my own just like common sense. So this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I separate what I can prove and what is something that is based in faith or personal experiences. So my axe is not against Jesus at all or his teachings. My axe is against the institution of the church. And I think people get that misunderstood. So
of course,
just like with Islam, like it became something else. Like I find a lot of things that I appreciate in the Quran, and honestly, like I think that it makes even more sense in some ways. I just think that Jesus was, like I said, misunderstood. Just like I find things in the Mahabharata. Like I just think that God is bigger than any one tradition. It's really that simple. Like there's one ultimate truth that has expressed itself in a myriad ways. But anyways, blessings.
Yeah, blessings, homie. And thanks for being here, everybody. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, 9:15 Eastern, PM. 9:15 PM Eastern. So yeah, I already described all of the different topics that we're gonna get into, and if you want a sample of the type of topics that we get into, just watch the previous shows. There's over 300 episodes there that you can look at, going back even 2 years or so. So yeah, I greatly appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for joining us here on The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on The Machine That Lies. And yeah, how do you kill what you can't see? The first step to blinding somebody is getting them to open their eyes. And the first step to seeing beyond the programming is to realize how you've been programmed. The more comfortably, you rest in the idea that you are free, the more likely you are to be enslaved. Yeah, thank you guys for being here. All these considerations, whatever I said, that is of a mistake. It came from me. Whatever that I said that was true, it did not come from me. It came from the Most High. Blessings to all you people. And thank you for joining me on this journey, this perilous journey. We're coming to you with literal, just broken heart. Actually, not that good state of mind. Right? Emotionally. But yeah, nonetheless, we will be back tomorrow. So please, pray for me and all of that type of stuff. So yeah, here's some music, and yeah, thank you guys. Blessings.
a city buster. I call it the crowd rapist. Ace of base shitty, confounded to drown faces. Out of the ground basics, found and lost spaces. Ashamed of its own baseline traces. That's pure hatred. Perhaps the internet feeds your village fright. I got the double-ox wingspan dragon archetype tonight. The part that reflects light, the razor blade kite. Fuck it, the rugged word, my immortal beloved. Got you sucking up bucket for Bisquick and contracts and shit. Printed on the back of Triscuits and served rectally. What a difference can make. My bad chemistry charts lines like lit up the range. Johnny the terrain bomb, borderline, fuck your sound bombing. I'm heated like broke days with nothing but noodle ramen and water. Water tainted, complaint file, time to transfer. Take me out, transfer denied. Answer supplied as stab through the nipples with their own bitchy ass rim shots. I'm audio too basic, combust with straight lust. Promoters operandum and box and funk thrust. You box with soft touch with soft tentacle. Tickle me sickly, sedate my brain quickly. So much slower, the whole scenery seems. Moving through plasticine brackets backwards. After burn, full thrust, punch, react trackless. Come to confront funk slugs for soft tactics. Turn the fire faucet on and burn them in their mattress. Then ashes float to heaven quicker than souls of children. Murdered by a strange man in the basement of the building. Time to build, time to be brazen with cane raising. The same fate of disdain, but the grain of insane patience. Patting at, fire in the sky, cataract eyes. This is nervous, unnerving worship. Reported fortnights of journey through, warning you. Secret pathfinder to cast a bad sitcom. The laugh track added to the last cast shit on. The audience clapped like Dillinger gun, Masonic rounds falling down. Trample the trespass sound. Ample to stress, ample get loudest to rest. From Banshee with a megaphone, megaphone. Hold the frequency, hold it unevenly. Unsheath the jihad blade and become animalistic. Authority walks the plank, that's implicit. The shambles are the gifted, this vandal in prison. This is just a CF thought card around and sold as old feelings to those with false motion. All potion, poured apart, hearts open. Cast it out, sold out in the open. DJ fucking Leno leaves the boombox dead. DJ fucking Crusher making children throw furniture. Learning disabilities spring from the scene like a recessive biter gene. Ignited like a flare for all teens. Tall beams broken, break down the foundation. Found in a pool of cess where the worms are nerve stations. FM is just a feminine breaks on rotation. Company flow hold the mic naked. Aside from murder touch, fuck with the once known divine style dummy droid noise from bad cats and bastards. I enter like Aslan, connected and godlike. Odd mic clutched and chucked the glass structure. Sided to the fuck with a working class rupture. Eating that body of martyrs and pump action. Something to fuck up with blood and dust faction. Techno spawn, the last long cock rhymer. Get with it. Space Ghost, the force soul weapon. Get with it. Get got or got missing. You got a very soft vision of art. You got a deficit disorder of heart. These are the ways of an endangered drum pattern. This is the flight of the hapless. You got it all backwards.
leave saliva on the mic and keep the disease moving. Hip-hop is not revolution. Paraplegic b-boy, you breathe noise, never give screams voice, but keep poised with hard looks. You learned in a comic book, hip-hop is violent fantasy. Any man could be a master among slaves, collect a wage or wage war. When the spark gets cooked, that's what the fuck you are paid for, pimp. You beat the language, you do the same shit. Revolution, you a liar every time you say bitch. You let the leaf slip in secret, cold lips call you coward. Forever, ever, stay, sleep, rot together on top of each other or in separate beds. I bury heads up to their necks, take their eyes open, let them watch the bombs drop into the ocean till they lay bare like deserts. The so-called world with rockets, peasants call them sand niggas and cave dwellers, but now the richest among us. We can't sell our skin to bring crops up from the toxic dust. We live in shelters if we live at all. Bleach skulls mock us. I man the radio dials, scan the air for dead men. It's quiet like New York hip-hop after 9/11. It's quiet like Eminem after Bush won re-election. Quiet like empty venues. You wanna battle me for this water? My mind's blank like the scorched earth. Pray for the scorpion to come end off first. When nothing's left but the trace, the graven images of nuclear physicists. We shaking fingertips in this dimness. In this winter, the spaces between letters open, I drop into oblivion. Writing, I'm trapped in between the lines. I escape. Subtle misdirection. Your eyes on the savior. Lesser than, greater than, sleight of hand. Heart failure. Heart failure. Heart failure. Heart failure. Heart. It's all subtle misdirection. Your eyes on the savior. Lesser than, greater than, sleight of hand. Heart failure. Heart failure. Heart failure. Heart failure. Send for the medics. I bet it's a battle for health. The pellets of medicine never spin messages right. Turn that message back on yourself. Stacking your shelf with rappers that are selfish, shackled and helpless. Settle the alchemist. Smack the fabric out his felt tip. My pen flips. It bursts like an infected appendix to evidence of that I just said it to stun. Rough fetus on the death sentence that I sent to the sun. Kicking a menace while he's down now. This is how the West was won. Celebrating all the raping and the pillaging of the villages. They're still in a military occupancy prison, listening to the Minutemen of hip-hop. They don't want to acknowledge the follies of following cowardly policies. American dreams turn lucid, remembering the scenes of a shooting on a peace movement. Synesthesia, I can see through your music, and I'll never accept it except if records are clever. Who could be that stupid? Take a pop song over underground artists who start strong. They fizzle out because their heart's gone. Y'all talk wrong. Your language is a string of hateful, lazy cliches. Hate-ridden gateways to racism. Resist arrest, then you embrace the system. Tell me with a straight face of bitches' places in the kitchen. Call me a faggot, slap 5 with the grand wizard. Then act surprised cause I can't get with it. I see your power in words, can't be all about flow. If it is, I hope it's something your listeners outgrow. Like that, can't be all about flow. If it is, I hope it's something your listeners outgrow. It's like this, can't be all about flow. If it is, I hope it's something your listeners outgrow. It's like that, can't be all about flow. If it is, I hope it's something your listeners outgrow.
Lebanon, Teflon, Dawn. Back, baby. The year of the nines. And I'ma have to make these motherfuckers an offer they can't refuse. You know? What's going on? Yo, come on, you know what's on. I roll a song, that's my flow on the Autobahn. Make sure the force is right. I floss all night. Get off the mic, it'll smoke like an exhaust pipe. Keep them in the library, studying my theory. Live theory get translated to Swahili.
from the lands as far as Zanzibar. They understand the art, demand the law. It's obvious why the copy is. They copy this. Soon as my data processes Y2K, they floppy this. Now who the hottest is? How can it not be this? Baby, who the cocky is? Poppy is, Rossi is. Hey yo, it's me so magnifico. Even my typical style, different code. Make the crowd go wild when I rip a show. Better stand back, this a blow you didn't know. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, need a microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever. You ever witness rapport like this before? It's Major, kiss the floor, say bitch my lord. It's the chosen one with the golden tongue. Flow for the old and young when I'm holding one. In the front row city, we show no pity. When kids get tiggy, girls are so pretty. The wanderer, back from Casablanca. The stomper, what next for Rada Conquer. So let's go, the best show will explode. No dress codes, they just posing their best clothes. Girls get exposed when I show my rap expo. Will it be a next episode? I guess so. Those that have doubt, wanted a high clout. What they mad about must be a cash route. MC switch they style from their last route. And I bet soon as they hear this, they spaz out. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, I hear the microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, I hear the microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever. Wherever I can go, it's the guard tempo. It's simple, my MO, no problemo. Been all over the map, even know where hell is at. I get the welcome mat and then welcome back. My flow is raw, they treat me like Mr. Know-It-All. They want me to show them all my brand new protocol. Excuse them why, I make a move for ride. You ain't super raw, say the hoop for law. Let me find out, you rhymed out, designed out, pulling dimes out, climb out. With time out, I'm at the free throw, playing ball or CeeLo. I keep though reloaded like Carlito, incognito. I be so low key, women get nosy. I do a show they wanna go see. They get to know me in the front row seat. They cozy, thinking I'm giving them the Bo-Bo-B until they OG. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, I hear the microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, I hear the microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, I hear the microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever. They show me love when I come through. Yo, any club that I come to, I hear the microphone check 1, 2. And they know what I wanna do, flow forever.
2 walls and that ceiling meet, where you'll be peeling me from when the dreams become abilities. The trilogy of growth, I'm at the 2nd level, where every word is special and I'm lost inside the echoes. And when it settles, I touch that 3rd stage. I shuck these mental shackles and blast my way out of that bird cage. Earthquake signifies an active foundation. It's got the posture aching, keeps my head out of these constellations. From this high, I may identify the obstacles. When I get this high, my head becomes a hospital. Voices bitching and bickering, complaining that they sick and injured, bleeding and hungry. Give me my tourniquets. Feed them nourishment and included with the diluted juice and bruised fruits I distributed. Who knew they wounds would heal so quick? Who knew the passion would become fashion and get them fastened onto the dick? Might as well have let them penetrate. The view from here shook me, looking at rookies that try to emulate. Take the time to break the rhymes down for what you gather. Only after will I climb to the rafter without my ladder.
Stability, overseer, stand over, ability, hover, provide contraceptive and meteor showers. The sky is falling, the earth is collapsing, seas freeze. Seize my support structure, you simmer. I make shape but provide shade upon your living mass. Granted, I'm branded with a limestone trim. So your epicenter splinters to shambles while the lights turn dim. Sheets stop bellowing, hug your teddy bears. Instead, towards the light in my center, cynical minds mind your master. It's only a shame to the rock slide, landing on your backside. Who needs to walk you laymen? Spend all of your time inside. I sing it all, I saw it all, I encase it all. And with all my power, they should have built more columns for me. The ball's still rolling, there's only 2 pins left, brother. Whether above or upon, I promise to always provide some cover. Quit breathing so much, this ain't comfortable for me. But I was more affordable than the ones that they had built in the early 90s. Oh my, look at those memories, listen to them complain. Some bitch about champagne, others talk about how they should have took the train. Regardless of your stature, status, or economical bubble, I'm still on top of your world, even if it's a pile of rubble.
Dripping through, walking on, hanging from, peeling off, dripping through, walking on, hanging from, peeling off. What in the name of human built this ceiling? How industrious it must have been. Awful continuous to span those reaches and rays. Not a wall, empty space only between. No corners, ceiling, the lid proceed on a system of physical laws. How high, height being among the first 3 you can't touch. It goes on to stretch an unexplainable linear roof of instance. Too relative for shelter. Its protection proposes our challenge to existence. Hold, will it hold, and for how long? With such holes tearing into nowhere justifies nothing we define or travel as fast as too distinct to blanket vast. It surrounds our absolute upper limits. Our reference comprises our synchronous tick tock, tick tock. Thank it for your fears and lows. Know if it starts or stops. Tick tock, rest beneath the safety it can only prop. It's not sturdy, old, weak, young, or made of tick-tock. It's above, with, under, in structure and stronger than our nails. Words, ages, beams, any watch. Tick, tick, tick. Tock, 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 tock.
I've experienced, been a witness to many happenings up to this point. Life and death have passed my eyes on both occasions. They anoint. At the beginning I looked down and I witnessed birth, but confined to my position I never realized what it was worth. I never realized the beauty it expounds and the emotions it induces. Never realized what true love, but sometimes no love at all produces. Never realized what I was going to see in my adventures of now, but realized I was in for a lot of sightseeing. So somehow I didn't pay much attention to the positive aspects of things. Only victims of stabbings and shooting. Who the fat ladies sing. They say they're on their way out as they pass through me, hoping each time that they could take me with them, so I could see a different aspect of the world, perhaps above the building, but let down every time they told me that they were not willing to take some extra baggage, as they chose to refer to I. Perhaps I'll never leave this place, so now all I do is sigh and think, what was I? But I was so misled that I only showed my interest in souls that were covered in red. Now I look back and I feel that I was cheated with precision. The different aspect that I had longed for was so clearly in my vision. Got sick and tired of negativity and I was due for a change, but never figured out that I needed not to rearrange. It was all before me, and I could have seen life as well. Now my one-track mind has only stories that no one wants me to tell.